Welcome to Monday Morning Musings, a series of interviews with senior female lawyers. I'm Ingrid Silver, and today I'm joined by Mel Cairns, who is VP Counsel at Endeavour Content. Good morning, Mel. How are you?
Hi, Ingrid. I'm really well, thank you. I'm excited to join you on this occasion.
Oh, it's so great to have you. Thank you so much for doing this. So, Mel, let's start off by having you tell people about what you do and a bit about the organisation that you work at.
Sure. So Endeavour Content is parented by Endeavour. It's a bespoke organisation that creates, distributes, and produces premium content. So films and TV shows, documentaries, podcasts. It's a very bespoke way of producing and distributing the content. It's great.
Yeah, so probably quite a cutting edge organisation in many ways in terms of how fast content is evolving and what that means for your role as well.
Very much so. It is very agile. It's definitely an organisation that is making things happen very quickly. We have to definitely think on our feet. There's a lot of competition in the market as well. So it's fast moving and fast paced. It feels very youthful and very energetic. And my role is specifically within the TV sales distribution team. So I head up the team that works on all of the contracts and distribution, whether it's bringing the rights in or selling the rights to the world to broadcasters.
Mm-hmm. And you joined Endeavour quite recently, I think. How long have you been there now?
I joined in January 2019, so I'm coming up to 2 years.
Oh gosh, time flies. Yes. And where were you before that? Remind me.
Before that, I was at Lionsgate for 2 years, and prior to that, I did a 10-year stint at Disney and 10 years at Fox before then. So I've been working my way around.
You've had a big, long career in big media companies in quite senior roles, which is how I sort of met you and how I saw you. But a couple of weeks ago, you posted something on LinkedIn, which I found incredibly powerful. And I'm going to try and include the link when I post this in this interview on LinkedIn. And you posted on LinkedIn a TikTok video, which you had created. And it basically described your professional journey. And it came as a real surprise to me. So it'd be amazing if you could tell people a bit about your professional journey. And then I'd really love to talk about why you've chosen to share it now, and perhaps the medium you've chosen it as well, and what that's all about. So let's start off by having you tell us about your story.
So yeah, my career started as a dressmaker when I left school, and to keep up a few of my typing skills, I also took a part-time receptionist job, secretarial role.
So you left school and didn't go to university. You became a dressmaker.
Yes, that's true. Yes, I left school at 16. I started doing A-levels, and I don't know whether my parents they'll probably hate me saying this, but I felt the school was private. It was very expensive. I felt that the qualifications that I were doing at A-level weren't really worth the money. So I dropped out. I just decided that it wasn't for me. I felt creative, I wanted to do some dressmaking. I had friends and family who were prepared to pay for that. And I did a course while I was doing that in fashion design and couture. And when I had a quiet period one winter when I wasn't making wedding dresses, I did a bit of temping, secretarial temping, just to see if I could get a feel for different companies, try out a few different things. And that led me to my role at Fox. I ended up in the legal department at Fox for the European Regional Office. And because I loved Fox, I loved the environment, the people, the culture. Being in London, it was great times. We got invited to all the premieres. It was very, very fun. And I've got a lot of friends still now from, you know, those days. And because I ended up in the legal department, I thought I'd try doing a bit of studying. And obviously I didn't know, so I had to start, you know, fairly basic. I found the Institute of Legal Executives, who allow you to do almost like a foundation, if you like, at times.
So we're having a bit of breakups, which I guess makes this all very real. But just to recap, so you leave school at 16. You take a course in couture. You effectively start up a business, sewing for friends and families, and you said making wedding dresses, which is no small feat. And on the side, you do some secretarial temping. And this is over how many years? This is
about 10 years.
Over 10 years.
Yeah.
And then you end up at Fox in the legal department, and you decide to start studying legal executive stuff.
Yes.
Okay.
At the time they did legal secretarial work, and they also did modules that you could get into once you've done the foundation. So I did the foundation and then decided to, my first module was going to be intellectual property law. Obviously, throughout my life, I've always been creative. I've never considered myself to be academic. And I just basically ploughed through this year after year, doing different modules until I qualified as the legal executive fellow. And at that point in my career, I decided to see if I could get another job. I moved to Disney at the time, and then spent another 10 years at Disney. I think Fox, Disney, they're very corporate environments. They have very top tier relationships with law firms. They get, you know, really high caliber lawyers. So being a legal executive didn't seem to cut the, you know, it didn't seem to live up to the standard that I hoped it would. So I then took the decision, after quite a lot of lobbying, you know, I don't just sort of take these decisions lightly. I decided that I would try and get myself the solicitor label. And I don't want to undermine this at all, because obviously for me, it was a case of, well, if you can't beat them, join them. You know, I couldn't progress my career as a legal executive, I think, because it's so specialized, you know, it's always it's always sort of had challenges so long ago with respect to barristers and solicitors. So I started again, effectively. I started the GDL.
Wow.
Because at the time that I did legal exec, it didn't have all of the core modules. So I had to,
so you effectively got a tertiary qualification to be a lawyer.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, exactly. Having
for those around the world watching this who may not know the intricacies of the UK system of legal qualification, but that's quite a big deal and a big jump. And from then on, you went on to have a sort of stellar career as a media lawyer to the point you are now. So that's an amazing and quite unique story, really, to sort of leave school at 16 and end up in a senior legal role in a global media company, and to obtain, you know, that legal qualification, you know, 1-2 decades into your professional journey. How long ago did you start, or maybe you did all along, but were you always comfortable telling people about your journey?
I would say no, but at the same time, obviously, I was working within the legal team at Fox, within the legal team at Disney, so everybody knew what my journey was.
Mhm.
Do I think that impacted my career aspects? I do a little bit. So when I left Disney and joined Lionsgate massively empowered me. They were phenomenal, going from a massive corporation into something that felt much more like my first days at Fox, you know, a much smaller family feel. And that was where my career really took off. I've always been very honest. I'm way too transparent, I think. But I think, you know, the route to my career, I'm proud of it. But at the same time, it's, you know, if your competition is stellar lawyers from Golden Circle law firms,
Yeah.
I consider my route inferior, I guess.
Well, I would hardly describe it as that, because, you know, looking at your achievements, nothing could be further from the truth. But a few weeks ago, you've said people in your immediate circle know about your journey, but that Lionsgate was an inflection point for you because it was a new circle of people in a way. And perhaps you didn't have that whole legacy that you carried with you visible in the same way. But a couple of weeks ago, you did something quite significant, which was that you broadcast your story effectively on a social media platform. So what prompted you to do that?
Sure. So why now? So lockdown in March was very intense for me. I threw myself 100% into work, probably 200% into work, and realized that I didn't have a project outside of work. I'm somebody that normally likes to have something else going on. So I decided to look back into my old historic skills and rekindle some of those. A little bit of drawing, a little bit of sewing. And during that process, I started volunteering for Scrubs for Heroes. So I was making scrubs, got my got my sewing machine out of the cupboard, dusted it off, and helped out a charity that was making scrubs for the NHS. And the reason I'm saying this is because I decided to also set up a TikTok account in order to do a couple of little videos to prompt people to donate or just, you know, share awareness of Scrubs for Heroes, that I was making scrubs, and you know, a couple of hours a day, and trying to support the charity. So TikTok for me was a way of editing little videos to try and do some publicity for Scrubs for Heroes, which was fun. And it was a process of really trying to embrace the technology, understand different forms of making content. Obviously, that's the environment that I work in, and TikTok is, you know, it's a big player in the market now on social media video. So with the TikTok thing, watching different videos, watching a lot of professional articles on LinkedIn, I saw the AOC challenge, and it really inspired me. Now, this is something.
So what's the AOC challenge?
So it was a picture that was posted of the senator in the US, and it basically flagged up labels that were, you know, she's come so far, she's an amazing woman, and she is, you know, she's done charity work. It basically put some very real terms around her challenges and where she's got to. And I thought about it, and it became a bit of a challenge on LinkedIn. And I just one morning woke up and decided that I wanted to tell my story. And I think part of the reason for wanting to tell my story was because it was the week that there was all the press in our papers, on our social media, about the exam result fiasco. And I just wanted to tell people that if they didn't get the exam results they wanted, it doesn't necessarily matter. You know, if you know where you want to go, or you find a route that opens up to you, then you can find a way of making that work. Obviously, it might not take overnight. It might be a long process, and it might be a process you have to really work doubly hard at. But I think, you know, if you really if you focus and you really want to find a way, I think you will. And I chose a very, you know, financially sustainable route because I was working at the same time. I found a route where I could do it at the weekends because I was working full time. And so my TikTok challenge for myself was really to reaffirm to myself that I've been through a very painful, long process that I should be really proud of and that I should share with other people, because it hopefully motivate them and give them the belief that they can do things themselves, even if they feel they haven't got the resources to do it. So for me, it was ownership. It was really saying that, okay, so the first 6 months of lockdown has been really hard for me. It's been overwhelming. I've dealt with it in different ways. Everybody's dealing with it in different ways. I understand that I'm in a really strong position. I'm in a great place. So it was my way of saying, right, I've got this. And anybody who is out there who hasn't got the qualifications they want, they're pressured by that, don't let it bring you down, because, you know, there are ways of making things happen. Even when you think a route has been cut off, another one will show its way at some point.
How inspiring. I mean, as I'm listening to you speak, I'm hearing someone who's actually incredibly giving, because actually what led you to share your story was that you were making scrubs for the NHS alongside juggling an incredibly demanding job, and then that wasn't enough. It was like you wanted to bring comfort to people who are going through a difficult time by doing something that may have actually been quite uncomfortable for you, which was really putting your own story out there and taking ownership. Which is amazing and a really powerful story. Thank you for sharing.
Can I say something else on that, actually? Sure. So I think one of the things that I realized when I had time, I put aside 2 hours a day to sew, and you're literally starting from a roll of fabric, laying out the pattern, pinning it together, cutting it out, trying to figure out how to put it together in the right order. So that whole process of deconstruction and then reconstruction, I think gave me a little bit of a framework to go, you know, where have I been? What has my journey been? And I was listening to a lot of podcasts because they're basically around Black Lives Matter. Endeavour took that very, very seriously and gave us a lot of reading material, inspired and motivated us to listen to a lot of underrepresented voices. And so listening to podcasts about that, again, I think it was about, for me, feeling that I could do something that would be, I guess, you know, rewarded personally, because it's you know, it's a reaffirmation that I feel good about what I'm doing. I feel proud of it, and I'm owning it. So it was that, you know, deconstruction, reconstruction that gave me the idea of thinking back over my career and where I'd got to forward. I feel that's
because listening to you talk about deconstruction, reconstruction, figuring out how to piece things together, taking in a lot of new information, that sounds an awful lot like what we do as lawyers, actually. And it sort of makes me want to ask you, how do you think all that stuff you did before formally becoming a lawyer shaped the lawyer you are today?
I'm asked this quite a lot, actually, and I always say, when you're sewing, you're cutting patterns, you're designing, cutting a pattern, sewing, you have to be methodical, the biggest thing is patience.
Oh.
You can't rush it. You know, when you're hand stitching beads onto a bridal gown, you can't rush it. You can't rush it at all. So, and I think that patience is a really important part of being a lawyer, because you need to listen, you need to understand. You can't just rush in and go, oh, there's an agreement, I'll read the small print and then, you know, correct it. For distribution in what I do, it's very much a case of understanding, you know, the media, the where it's going to go, how a consumer is going to consume it. There's a lot of creativity in there, and a lot of trying to piece it together. Having come through that route before I studied law, obviously I had to set up a business, and the sort of practical steps of understanding that is useful knowledge. You know,
And that's such a powerful piece of advice, particularly for younger lawyers, because, you know, I remember when I was coming through, we barely had email and everything was sort of dictated and things were slower, and things like legal research took a lot more time. Yeah. And one had to be a lot more methodical, whereas there's a certain immediacy in how things happen now, because everything can be found very quickly and information is at our fingertips. But actually, it's a really valuable discipline as a lawyer, and probably as any professional, to just slow everything down and process things, particularly in times of turmoil as we are now. So, Mel, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much. I usually like to end these discussions by asking people what their words of advice and words of wisdom would be for other people on their professional journeys, younger people coming through. I sort of feel you've answered a lot of that, because my takeaways are about patience, the fact that non-conventional journeys are not only possible but actually enriching, and something that at the end of the day one can be proud to take ownership of. Is there anything else you'd want to add to that?
I suppose when I started Legal Exec, I didn't realise I was going to end up as a solicitor 20 years later. But I think that part of the process of that journey was going, okay, that's where I have to go. That's what I have to try and do. So I would say, you know, trust your instincts. Don't be ashamed to aim high, but also be realistic. It took me 10 years. You know, that's a long time. Nobody's going to start a 10-year educational journey and accept that, you know, it's going to take 10 years to get there. But in the big scheme of things, you know, this is my second career, and, you know, I don't feel like I've lost out through being a mature student. And I think it's important to believe in yourself and, yeah, trust your instincts. I think I thought I could do it, and I feel like I've got to a certain point. There's still so much to learn. We never stop learning.
Wow. So aim high, trust your instincts, believe in yourself, and never stop learning.
And be realistic.
And be realistic. That's the one. Mel, thank you so much.
Yeah.
This has been amazing. Take care. Bye.